So the Living Lab is about mitigating climate change. That's the primary goal from the government standpoint, and doing it in such a way that is attractive and beneficial for farmers in terms of their farming practices, as well for society as a whole. So there's two main aspects of climate change. One is to remove carbon dioxide from the air and store it in the soil. The other one is relating to emission of greenhouse gases, in particular nitrous oxide. A lot of our work is to try to mitigate nitrous oxide emission while at the same time improving the efficiency of the nitrogen use in the crops.
The goal for BC Living Labs and the cover crops is to extend the winter grazing season, because that is perhaps the most expensive part of the ranching industry, is the winter feed. The other goal is to prime the ability to understand how the nutrients are sort of being cycled within the soil, coming off the farm, going back into the soil. So that is the goal of both Living Labs and the university. We're looking more at the soil health.
The biggest challenges of winter feeding is making sure equipment is up and running when it gets really cold, making sure the body condition score of the cattle stays high, and making sure they're all fed properly and not overfed but not underfed. So that is one of our biggest challenges.
The Devics had a mix of grasses, so they had the triticale and annual ryegrass. So that is good for both feeding the cattle and extending the grazing season, but it's also good in the spring when they till it in. So now you're adding soil organic matter, which is very good for encouraging soil health.
We used Forage Pro mix, which has got turnips and radishes, and we underseeded that with a crop of triticale.
That one worked out very well. We had a very high yield, and the grazing after was phenomenal as well.
And the maturity was a problem there. The triticale was a little slower maturing, and it choked out a lot of the stuff underneath. This year, I think we're going to change that practice and try some barley instead of triticale. That will probably help out, and we'll get a second grazing.
And yet another one is grazing other types of standing crops, notably corn. So corn is potentially a very high-producing crop. It would produce more than most grasses under certain conditions, especially with irrigation. And so the idea is you grow the corn, and then when the grazing season is over, you gradually turn them into the corn for the cows to actually graze the standing corn. So what happens, of course, is that the corn is tall, and the cows will go in there and they'll make a mess. They'll knock things over.
And any time that you can let a cow or an animal harvest his supper for himself or his feed for himself, it's a real added benefit. They do better naturally, they do better grazing, it helps the ruminant work better, and it's just better for land and cow and the producer combined.
We've only done the baseline testing so far. The one result that is quite interesting is that the cattle are effectively utilizing the corn, and when I say effectively utilizing it, I mean just spreading out onto that area. And so they're spreading their manure, they're spreading their impact, which is fantastic.
Well, I think the corn was high on starches and lacking protein. So when we supplemented them with the hay, that gave them their protein. That was what made them maintain their body conditioning score and kept them growing their calves for this year.
We have learnt that we can grow here. We're at fairly high elevation. We're right around 3,000 feet of elevation here. We know with the corn varieties that are available now. And the biggest thing was the concern for us was the utilization of the stems and the whole plant rather than just the leaves and the cobs. As you can see in the background of the field, there's a lot of residue left that wasn't utilized, and that's one of our concerns so far. But hey, maybe we can figure it out, and maybe our cows don't know how to eat it properly yet.
I would just like to say that it's actually been a very unique and interesting experience to be able to work directly with a rancher in this way. Usually science is quite, you have your plots and it's very methodical.
So we're constantly in communication with the industry, and we together try to come up with solutions to the current BMPs, improvements, bring more people into the conversation and into the activity. And that's how Living Labs are actually supposed to work, and they are working that way.